Alrighty guys, welcome to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reunion panel. Alright. Cool. Put your hands together for John Dugan and Teri McMinn. Alright guys, I'm going to ask a question or two, get it started, and then as soon as I see hands going up out there, I'll start calling them out. Guys, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
We're enormous fans. So there's a lot that is known about the production of this film, so I'm going to try and see if we can possibly venture into some stuff that some of these hardcore fans don't know. I've always been curious, what can you guys tell us about what you remember about first getting the script and how the project was pitched to you guys initially?
I got a phone call from Kim Henkel, who was married to my sister, so it was like total nepotism, you know. But I was doing a children's play in Chicago called The Taradiddle Tales. 2 shows a day, 6 days a week for $175. Dressed up in tights, dancing around telling folk tales from around the world to the inner city children of Chicago.
Literally could not be more opposite.
And yeah,
yeah.
And Kim called me and said, "Hey man, you crazy?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, what do you need?" And he told me he's doing this film. And he wanted me to be a part of it, so I gave notice, and a couple weeks later I was in Texas.
Wow. That's awesome. Teri, what do you remember about first getting the script and having it pitched to you?
So I was living in Austin, and I was doing plays at St. Edward's University at Mary Moody Northern Theater, and I was doing a play with a man named Frank Sutton. He was Gomer Pyle's sergeant, and it was a TV series at that time. And I was in a shot in the Austin American Statesman, and my eyes were closed, and I was bending over a dead body. And they saw my picture in the paper. They'd been around to all the different schools, SMU, UT, Texas Tech, all the schools, and they'd seen about 500 girls. And a friend of mine said, "Oh, you ought to go and audition for that," because they'd called the school and asked for me to come. And I thought, it's a non-union scab film. I'm thinking I'm going to be doing Chekhov and Edward Albee, and all that. And I said, he said, Teri, just go read for him, So I went and I read, and I left, and then my friend said, "Well, how'd it go?" And I said, "Oh, it went all right, And he said, "Well, call him and tell him you want the role." So I said, "Okay." So I called and I said, "Oh, I really, really would like to be in your film." And I really, really didn't think I would like to be in their film. But anyway, they said, "Okay." They said, Kim said, "Okay, Teri," he said, "come down tonight and wear some short shorts." And I'm thinking, ooh, ow, So I put on my little white short shorts with embroidered flowers going up the side and my pink knit top, and I got on my bicycle and I rode over to the audition. And I read, something about chainsaws and Saturn in retrograde, and I had no idea really what I was getting into at all.
Wow.
And that's how I got cast.
Wow, classic. The obviously one of the things the production is, famous for is, the brutal conditions, the grueling heat, limited resources, unique aromas.
Yeah.
I was always curious what the one part of making that film that you'll just never be able to forget. Yes.
Probably shooting that dinner party scene, which was just grueling. It was just awful, over and over and over again. And Toby, I don't know if he continued working this way in his career, but instead of doing a master or 2 masters, doing a master shot from one end of the table and a master from the other side, and maybe one from broadside, and then cutting everybody's close-ups. When we did the close-ups, we had to do the whole fucking scene again. So we ran through the whole scene every time. So when we got to the 2 shots, the close-ups, we'd start at the top and do the whole scene again. I mean, we was burning up film like crazy, and which is odd because we didn't have any money, for the lab or anything. So it just went forever. And I was 5 hours in the makeup chair, and then I had to work for like 26 hours. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I read
and
that
he
was a
just
little
kept
longer
beating
than
it to him
normal.
over and over and over again. And now, it just dawned on me a few years ago. I was watching the film with fans, in a movie theater, and the tension is so thick in that scene, it's palpable. You can just feel. Donna, maybe he did that on purpose, and he just pushed us until we were ready to say, yeah, let's fucking kill her. I want to go home, I want a beer and a nap. And maybe he had done that until he just got what he wanted and said, okay, that's a wrap for the day, that sort of thing. Who knows? It could have been just a fluke. I don't know how much of the stuff, people read so much into the film. It's so legendary over the years. Like it was an analogy for the Vietnam War, all sorts of crap.
Watergate,
Wasn't any of that shit. Bullshit. But once somebody says it, and Kim Henkel is a guy who'll play right into that shit. Oh yeah, and Toby,
Well, I
I don't
remember.
think I falls for it all.
Yeah,
I read it on the
shit.
internet once, I'm like, it must be true.
I remember, because I was doing a play at night. I was doing The Rainmaker with Peter Breck by the time we were filming. And I remember going to the theater at night, and they'd have Watergate hearings on in the green room. So we were listening to them at night. And because I wasn't around, thank God I wasn't around for the dinner party.
Oh, no. So we had all that food out there. We had no ventilations. It was close to 100 degrees ambient temperature outside. Then all the windows are shut and blacked out. And then they pop about 10,000 watts of tungsten up. And shit, you can cook on that shit. I mean, it's hot. And no ventilation and all this meat on the table. And a lot of us like raw. They had raw. What is the sausage in Texas? Hot links, Texas hot links. Is that what they call them? Oh, come on! You went. You lived down. I did too. But sausage, that is supposed to be cooked and smoked and grilled and all that stuff. And the PA just had bought like 5 pounds of raw sausage and slapped it on the table there. So it's starting to sweat and kind of cook slowly, rot. And there's flies crawling on it. It was just fucking disgusting. Everybody smelled. Gunn couldn't. His shirt was hand dyed by the costume woman, the wardrobe mistress, Dottie, like in her apartment in Austin with a box of Rit dye, that sort of thing. And then it dawned on them they were afraid to wash it because it wouldn't match. So he had to wear the same shirt the entire shoot. And he was a big guy. And
He
it was
weighed
hot.
350 when we did the film.
So what?
He weighed 350 when we did the film.
He sweat a
lost
lot.
100 over the years. He lost 100 pounds, and he'd really trimmed down by the time,
But it was like off planet BO. He didn't even smell human. It was like a sweaty Martian or some shit. It was, I don't know what a Martian smells like. But it was just unbelievable. Nobody could get close to him. Poor guy, we'd break for lunch and he had to sit all by himself because nobody could stand to sit next to him.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, really. It was bad. And the whole crew stunk and everything stunk and I stunk. And it was hot and miserable. But we got it done.
It translated
I was
to
20 years old, and we're making a movie. So you do whatever it takes because, the show must go on, that whole showbiz thing. You do what you have to do. And you stay there until you get it done. So we all had that kind of work ethic,
Awesome. Next questions.
Was there any sense from either of you when you were on the set that maybe you were doing something special? It's going to be
Historic.
memorable, iconic. It's going to be like a feature of Halloween.
No, I was doing a play at the end, and they wanted me for some pickup shots, and I didn't have an agent, and so they wanted me to do the pickup shots, and I had negotiated to go and do The Rainmaker with Peter Breck, and I negotiated $600 a week, which Peter looked at me and said, I cannot believe that they're going to pay you that, Teri. Because at that time, that was, dinner theater, you didn't make that. So anyway, I called Kim and I told him that, I had this offer. When do you want to do the day of pickup shots? Because I want to do it before, this run. And they threatened me because we'd signed a money, we hadn't made any money in that time. I'd lost my waitressing job. I needed money, and they threatened me, and I was so nervous about it. And I went to Andy Devine. Andy was Jingles, the sidekick for Roy Rogers, and yeah, Stagecoach. He was the stagecoach driver, Buck,
For Gene Autry.
And
for Gene Autry.
he, Andy thinks I'm like some whiny little thing, and he's, oh, Teri, that goddamn thing will never come out of the fucking can. In other words, shut up, and just go and do. And I was so intimidated by them threatening me because I'd signed this deferred money contract that I didn't go and do the 6-week run.
Just didn't realize it would be deferred forever.
I did not realize that. The deferred meant, we'll only pay you a little something if it's ever shown on the big screen.
We'll pay you later.
So anyway, I didn't have any real warm, fuzzy feelings, for them forever.
Oh, man. Questions out there, guys? Oh, got one here, yeah.
What did you do to get in the character for Teri when especially when Leatherface grabs you and is dragging you into the house?
Oh, I was so excited to do those scenes because I finally could really relate to something. Like riding in the van, Toby said, your facial expressions are too big. I said, well, I throw up when I smell something bad, Anyway, long story shorter, I really was excited to do those scenes because I felt like I could, I'd been training in theater since I was 13, 14. So I was really ready. This was like my moment. I was so excited. And Gunnar and I worked really well together. And so I was, I just got into it. And I really didn't have to do a lot because he was a big guy. He's trying to pull me outside of everywhere. And Toby would have 35 angles for one,
Jeez.
I mean, literally, the guy, we shot from
infuriating.
9 in the morning until we were losing light at 7:30, I can recall. And I had been screaming and running and fighting a 350-pound man with all my might. And, I didn't hold anything back. I was just lucky that I didn't hit my legs on things or whatever. But I could not walk. I couldn't scream at the end of the day. They were giving me Jack Daniels to drink neat. Just so, because it's hard to do those scenes and not really yell, or, you know what I mean? Because just to go, it just felt fake. So I was a trooper, and like John said, we took it very seriously.
Very seriously, yes.
And
It came out that way on the screen. I mean, it really came out that I could really, feel the emotion.
Now I feel that way. For 30 years, though, I would watch it and I go, oh, if only you had, like most actors, you just beat yourself up. And so for 30 years, I stayed back. And then somebody said when I finally, in 2008, they were trying to get me to come out. They said, well, Teri, your scenes are taught in directing classes across the world. I went, oh, please. You've got to be, And so I had just found out what YouTube was, and so I thought, I wonder if anybody can see if I'm going on YouTube, I had no real clue what internet was or anything. And so I'm going on YouTube like thinking, I hope they can't see that I'm going on here, So I watched my scenes.
Take you 2 hours to download it. Buffering.
But I watched the scene and I finally went, I think I almost cried, and I said, "Oh, Teri, you weren't bad,"
Yeah.
and I finally embraced it. So it was a nice feeling.
I love the film. I think it's well done. It's well directed. The cinematography is beautiful. The soundtrack is great. The acting is top notch. The writing is fantastic. I like it a lot. I'm proud of it.
I feel fortunate now.
If I could actually piggyback on that, you mentioned the sound. It's one of my favorite things about the film is the sound design. It was so unique for the time, and I was wondering if that was something that was a total surprise to you guys.
I was
or-
surprised. That was Toby Hooper and Wayne Bell in Toby's apartment banging on shit. It was, literally.
Yeah, that's cool. I read it.
And
There's no
it
motion
really,
pictures.
it worked, didn't it?
Oh, amazingly.
I'm sure there was a little cannabis involved. Yeah, it was Austin, Texas in 1973.
I think there was more than cannabis involved.
Yeah, there may have been. Could be.
But I'm sure there was cannabis involved. Because there was some growing outside.
Yeah, there was like several
And
plants.
those
There
were
was
some long days.
there was
you
a
know?
patch back there.
And we'd wait
Have a
for a
chainsaw.
cloud to roll by, and
Yeah.
that would take 2 hours. So there was a lot of hanging out. And when we first arrived on the set, there were no chairs with your name on it, or no air-conditioned RV or something like that. I mean, I can remember that one of us would be in the hammock, and the other one would be, two of us would be up on the porch. The swing was on the porch, and then there was one chair, and we would rotate. And then finally, after about a week, they got us some chairs, I think. It was very low budget.
My first morning on set, I had flown in from Chicago overnight. Picked up at 6 a.m. Kim Hinkle picked me up. He said, "Do you want to go get some sleep? Or we're setting up right now. You want to go out to location?" I said, "Well, let's go to location, And we got there, and they were setting up. They were working that whole day on the shots at the deserted grandfather's house thing. Like Sally's grandpa's old house or whatever that thing was there. We're going to go to this fishing hole.
We're going to have fun.
Yeah,
huh?
fishing hole, yeah.
We're
And
going to have a lot of fun.
Paul Partain, Franklin, is sitting in his wheelchair behind his Cadillac convertible. He had a huge white Cadillac convertible with red leather interior, big pointy fins that long. Trunk was open. He was sitting in his wheelchair with a little semicircle of folding lawn chairs around him, like in a little conversation grouping, but nobody was sitting there with him. Just sitting all alone, with his feet like that. He had his slippers sewn together at the toes so it would turn his feet in. And I started talking to him, and he got all excited. He says, "Grab yourself a drink, partner, and sit down here with me." And he had a huge cooler full of ice down with 16-ounce bottles of Coca-Cola and cans of Budweiser. And I grabbed a beer at 6 o'clock in the morning, which I still do. Wash down my vitamins in the morning with all my supplements. Not Budweiser, though. And we just started, talking and became fast friends. Everybody else thought he was an asshole because he just never broke character, But God,
Well, you didn't
the
have
char-
any scenes with
No,
him.
I didn't have to act with him, yeah.
He stayed in character the whole day. And so we would all, between takes, be kidding around and trying to have some fun. And Franklin was all day. So I never got to know him. Paul was apparently a really nice person.
Oh, he was a super nice guy. Super nice guy. And he was a hell of an actor. The character is still... If you knew Kim Hinkle, you'd understand. But Kim Hinkle's the first person who ever wrote a handicapped character. Someone, paralyzed in a wheelchair who's an asshole, It's usually a sympathetic character. Put a guy in a wheelchair and make him a fucking asshole on top of it. I think it's just brilliant,
Yeah.
Very true. Is any questions out there, guys?
I can't believe the grandpa was only 20 years.
Yeah, 20. I was 20.
That's what I was going to ask. You're 20 and all that makeup they had to do. Did you question their wisdom, why not just hire some old actor?
There's not a lot of 110-year-old actors out there. I haven't seen many.
That must have been torture, that late.
It was awful. It was really,
But
really
it was
awful.
a plastic surgeon that designed that.
Yeah, he was a cosmetic surgeon, Dr. Barnes. He was a plastic surgeon, a painter, a sculptor, a photographer. He was a photographer for Penthouse Magazine for 30 years. He was young, talented, stinking rich man. And he was just when it came to makeup, he was just he was a hobbyist. He played with it. So he took a cast of my face and aged it. He said, if you live to be 110 years old, or 113, or however old Grandpa was supposed to be, he said, you very likely will look like this. I was like, she's great to know, Doc. Thanks, But he had this house. Oh God, he had this house in the hills in the north of Austin, backed up into these rocky hills, with an in-ground concrete swimming pool. His master bedroom suite overlooked the deep end of the pool, and he had a sliding glass door and a wooden platform out there, so he could roll out of bed and dive from the second floor into the deep end of his pool first thing in the morning. I thought, man, I got to get me one of these things here. So I became an actor, and it broke my whole life.
Dreams come true.
Yeah.
Here's another question.
I would ask, how many days did it take to shoot this film from beginning to end?
Oh boy.
It was about 5 weeks.
Took a
I
break in the
came
middle to get
out.
more
You know
money.
the shot where it's on Wikipedia, but I've got my hands resting on my legs, and I'm looking pretty miserable. That's like my 22nd birthday. And they, I was very angry because they needed me to come out and do the audio for the picking up the tooth scene. And I'm thinking I'm missing out on $600. I'm shooting this for freaking nothing, And I'm miserable because they had threatened me and intimidated me. And I never saw that picture. Sally Richardson walked by. She was the ADP, and she walked by, and I was sitting looking straight ahead, and she said, "Hey, Tara, look over here," and I went, and so I never saw the picture. And then when I finally came out in 2008, somebody said, "Hey, Tara, you're on Wikipedia," and I went, "Yeah, right," And I went, oh my God, and there was that picture, and there was that day, and it just, everything came flooding back about what had happened, and everything came back to fruition. So that's a very popular shot now.
Curious again, this changed the shape of horror movies, because prior to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, horror movies usually involve monsters, classic monsters, vampires, werewolves, space aliens, and this kind of really, even though it had been done before with Hitchcock's Psycho, this really got the thing going where the most horrifying monster is the serial killer, before there was even the term. I'm just curious, it's Texas, this is 74 when you shot this, were the Dean Coral murders weighing on people?
They were happening right then.
Yeah, okay.
Right when we were shooting,
The summer
Dean
73.
Coral was, yeah. And at that time, a lot of people don't realize this was so controversial. Marilyn, Bill, and I took it off of our resumes, because I remember I was going to theater auditions, and I remember a director looking at me, and he went, "Texas Chainsaw Massacre, what is that?" It was so despicable, and it was banned. It was so controversial, that for me it did me no good. I don't know how much good it did you.
It certainly didn't open doors in Hollywood. I've had casting directors, look at your resume and go,
Oh,
you
you
were in the
did
Texas
that?
Chainsaw Massacre.
Because remember, it was
Because
non-union.
it had not become a thing yet.
Oh, no, it took 10
know.
years.
It had not.
10 years.
It wasn't it was just something to be made fun of, Johnny Carson poked fun at. You know, people started using it.
Everybody put it
It kind of became a catchphrase for something that's disgusting. You know, it's like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know.
The first sequel was 12 years later, right?
Yeah, I guess.
It didn't come for 12 years. You're right.
Yeah.
Right, and remember it was banned in the UK for 25 years.
It's banned in Germany, banned in.
Till 2013 in Germany.
I was living in New Hampshire at the time. There was a very right-wing publisher worked for the newspaper up there. His name was William Lowe, the Manchester Union leader. When this opened in the theaters in his own, he wrote an editorial in his own paper questioning the taste and wisdom of the local theaters releasing a movie like this. Like how dare they? I went the day it opened. It's kind of interesting.
What year was that?
1974, October. I went to the day it opened, and it was kind of funny. I went to like the first screening. I read Rex Reed's review in the New York
Right.
He loved it.
Right.
And I remember when I went, this is New Hampshire, you know, kind of conservative back then. I was the only one in the theater.
Yeah.
I was alone. I was the only one that bought a ticket. And I'm sitting there, and there's this thing on full
Wow.
screen. It was a very memorable experience.
Oh, yeah.
Did it have a second release? Like, I remember it came out when I was 7. It was too young to see it, but I remember it coming out in theaters again. And
It was
1980. I made my mom
Yeah.
buy a ticket so I could go to see it.
Well,
1980.
it was the most rented video of the 80s, you know, and I remember, because I wasn't even out then, and I was giving a party at my house in Austin, and God, even in 95, you know, and everybody else, like Gunnar was coming by my house to get me to sign pictures that he would sell at shows, that he would take and sell at shows. And he'd say, oh, you ought to come to one, you know, and I was busy. I had a flower business. I was, you know, I just went on and lived my life. And I remember I was at a video store, and I thought, well, I should just rent it and see it, you know. And I didn't even tell the guy that I was in it or anything. But anyway, I was giving a party at my house, and there were about 30 people there, and my good friends, about 3 or 4 of them, knew that I had done this film. And so I heard somebody say, oh no, she was in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, out of the corner of my eye. And I thought, no, not that thing. And then this other person went, she was the girl on the meat hook? Are you kidding me? You know, and it began to sort of dawn on me that, wow, this thing has really come a long way since, you know, because I had just kind of put it in a drawer and, you know, wasn't. So it was pretty amazing, though, when we went to Cherry Hill and Bill and I came out for the first time together.
That was a good
And
show.
We appeared. I didn't stop signing for 3 days.
I had writer's cramp by Sunday. It was the first time all of us had been together, the entire living cast. Paul had passed away by that point, but Jim was still alive. And we
But
had
he
we
wasn't
had-
at the show with us.
Oh, yeah, I think he was.
Uh-uh.
He was not at that?
No, he died in 2004. I looked it up.
Oh, so he was dead too, yeah.
I was at that Monster Any Jim.
No, he wasn't there. Okay.
No, because I
Yeah,
I
because that was
loved
2000.
Jim, as far as I'm concerned,
7 or 8,
was the best
That
thing
was
in this
2006,
film. I
wasn't it?
loved him.
6, maybe. I was there.
I think it was 2006.
It was before Monster Mania for sure, because I would have remembered if Jim had been there because
Yeah,
I
no, he
really-
died. If he died in 2004, he died before
Well, I
that
looked
show.
it up because I was noticing something. I'll pull these out.
Oh, what?
Any questions out there, guys?
But we had at that show we had one whole wall of the big room, and people just came down the line, and literally by Sunday to sign that much. But it was
Well,
like cha-ching.
And everybody had said to me, Teri, you really are not going to believe how these fans are, you know. And I actually was just figuring out what memorabilia was, you know. I thought, memorabilia, why would these people want to talk to me? You know, I still was wrapping my brain around it. And by the end of Saturday, I looked around at everybody in the cast and I said, can we do this like every weekend?
Wouldn't that be great?
I'd be there. Any other questions out there, guys?
Well, I mean, it was shot under a different title.
Yeah, head cheese.
My script was head cheese. Some people's scripts said Leatherface, I think, didn't it?
When did
I
the?
thought mine said head cheese.
Mine was head cheese.
I mean, the title made it because the title was so transgressive on those marquees. When did the title come in? Did the distributors think of that title?
No, I don't think the distributors. I don't know.
I really don't know. It might be in Wikipedia, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, how that
No, I don't.
happened.
That's a good question. I don't really know when and
Well,
when it
Kim
changed and
would
who.
know that answer.
The next time I talk to Kim, I'll ask him.
Back in the 50s and 60s, there was a company that used to distribute low-budget films called Crown International. They would change the titles and make these unknown movies into hits. They took a movie called Madman of Honduras and changed the title to They Saved Hitler's Brain, and then it was a drive-in hit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well,
The title does.
Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah.
It was such an assault to the senses.
I can remember I was waiting tables in Dallas, which is about 150 miles from Austin. And I had told a couple of people that I filmed this horror movie the summer before. And this would have been when it was coming out and the trailers were on, but I never watched TV at that time. And I was standing at the bar waiting to get my drinks from my bartender, and he said, "Hey, didn't you tell me you were in some horror movie? You're in all the trailers. It's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You're in a..." I said, "Yeah, that's it, Texas Chainsaw." "You're kidding me." "Oh, I'm in all the trailers?" You know, because I figured it would be Marilyn, you know, never me. And when I saw the trailers, I went, "Damn, I'm in all the trailers." It was quite a shock.
So we got
I'm
one.
just gonna state that like I suffer from migraines, and all I ever say is that like the back of my head feels like it's hanging on a meat hook, and that's what I always say. So that's the Chainsaw Massacre. I'm a Michael Myers fan. John Carpenter's Michael Myers girl, but
Yeah.
I just always say that that's the back of my head feels like it's hanging on a meat hook.
that is the scene when I saw it in the movie theater for the first time. It was the Chicago Theater, Chicago, Illinois, on State Street, which is a beautiful old vaudeville house originally, and it was run down at the time, but they've since restored it, and it's a live performance venue now and everything. But that's where I saw it the first time, with a probably 3/4 house. And when Teri gets hung on that meat hook, is when about 30% of the audience stood up and walked out. And I'm telling Teri that she got a walking ovation in Chicago. But
Well, you know, the funniest part of that is Toby came up to me the day before we were going to shoot that scene. He said, "Teri, we're going to shoot the meat hook tomorrow. Do you have any ideas about what you'll do and what you'd like to do?" And I said, "Well, you know, I've been thinking about it, Toby, and I was thinking that maybe if the meat hook didn't hit her in some strategic part of her spine, that maybe she'd try to reach up and try and get off the hook." And Toby said, "Yeah, let's go with that."
it's very effective. And I've had numerous arguments with people, with fans who think they see that meat hook go into her. You don't. You know, and you can say, "No, that's your own sick fucking brain, man." You never saw that. Your brain finishes the image, you know, but you don't see her get hung on the meat hook. You see her reaction to the meat hook.
And you see the
But-
bare back coming toward the hook.
You see the hook, you see the back, you
it's
see
the
her,
editing.
the way it's edited, and then he lets go over, and that thing yanks you up, because actually it was turned backwards, and she was on the meat hook, but the hook was facing the other direction.
Right, and Toby
So he
was
hooked that
underneath
loop on there, and
spotting me.
he let go of her and dropped her. So you get that jerking
He was just
effect,
spotting me so that when
and
the,
then her reaching up like
when
that
the
is
loop
so
went
effective.
over the hook, it didn't go in my back, you know, so that was nice of them. Because when they had me, remember that scene when I run into the chicken room and I trip over the back? Okay.
I was in that scene, but I was off camera.
So here I am with my little bare legs, you know, it's dark, and Toby says, "Okay, Teri, action." So I run in, and the bucket has a serrated edge, you know, it's one of those, what do you call
So a
it?
wash tub.
It's a bucket. It's
Oh,
a
is it?
bucket.
Oh,
yeah,
oh, that- okay, that
ceramic.
was a bucket, yeah,
It's
yeah.
I mean, not
It's
a
like
ceramic,
enamel.
but enamel bucket.
Red
And
on
it's
the
got
top
a-
and white,
a
old-fashioned
hard
pail.
edge, that kind of a lip that comes up like that. And so my shin, it hits my shin just so I can trip over it. And we did that 13 times.
I was a chicken
and
wrangler.
by the time that we had finished, Toby, I said, Toby, I can't do it anymore. My leg is bleeding. It's bruised. He was quite relentless
Did that
in
over.
his, misogyny.
I was laying on the floor with a broomstick poking the chicken. Poking the chicken cage right before they get ready to go, and I get the chicken clucking and get the cage going.
And
Wayne,
I
and
really
Wayne Bell
felt
was
bad
laying
about the
in a
chicken.
pile of feathers with a boom mic and a shotgun, booming it from underneath. It did take a long time to do that fucking thing, didn't it?
It took, I'm telling you, we filmed that. The meat hook scene started at 9, by noon we were done. I mean, they came in with lunch and I'm standing there, and there are like 15 or 20 people. Everybody came to see that shot done. And everybody, you could have dropped a pin and heard it because it was just so, and when we finished, I saw everybody going, and it sort of felt like we had something
Yeah.
finally.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Because up until then, it had been quite chaotic in some ways, and not a lot of, like, I remember Lou was our assistant DP
Mhm.
on the film, and I remember I'd finish a scene and I'd turn to Lou for like, how was it? Was that okay? You know what I mean? Because I wasn't getting that from Toby or Ken
Yeah.
or anybody, especially, and so I would always turn to Lou and he'd go, okay. And that really meant a lot.
Well, I always felt like that scene was kind of the spark that lit the fire of modern horror as we know it. So that's, one of my favorite scenes of all time. But unfortunately, I think we're just about out of time, guys. So why don't you guys put your hands together for this guy?
Thank you.
Thank you.